Hey guys, welcome back to Girls Unplugged. Today is episode 4, and we have a very special guest with us. You might know Andy from his BookTok journey, whether it's his book boyfriend videos or because of his publishing journey. But today we are going to talk to him about his upcoming book release and his BookTok journey. So good to have you here. How are
Thank
you?
you for having me. Yeah, really good, thank you. Nervous but excited.
Yeah, this is our very first author interview, so we are also a little bit nervous but excited to have you.
So obviously, Bronte and I know you, Andy, from Book Talk before we ever read your book. So tell us a little bit about your Book Talk journey, why you decided to even start one, and like how you feel about the Book Talk community.
So I actually started on BookTok for really it sounds like I had like a business plan, but essentially I had done a course a couple of years back with HarperCollins and they did an author academy course and it was to help authors from underrepresented ethnic backgrounds learn a little bit about the publishing industry. And I remember one of the things that they advised us, it was only a small group and I think they do it like biannually, but they said a really good thing for publishing companies to feel reassured is to have a social media presence. And not only can it help you get recognized by the publishing industry, but also can help you market to potential readers. So at that point, I had been stalking BookTok for a very long time on like my like private account, which no one will ever know the details of because it's just dogs jumping and people farting. But anyway, so I was like getting the occasional like BookTok video come through. And I was like, you know what? Like I'm seeing a lot of like independent like self-published authors promoting it. So I was like, let me just do that. So I started doing it like just a bit like gently, like start talking about my own book, this book that I've been writing, I know, for however like a decade beforehand. And then I started getting book reviews and I started connecting with people on BookTok, especially UK BookTok. And then I started getting sent books and then I started getting invited to like launches and bookish events where I met you guys. And then I felt like I was kind of becoming part of the community and I wanted to contribute to that community, not just as an author, but also as a fellow reader, because now my bookshelves were getting filled with all these books that were being recommended to me from content creators in the UK. And that was getting sent. So I started making videos and doing all the silly skits that you guys just mentioned about like the book boyfriend and all these other rubbish, embarrassing things. But I don't regret it because that's what caught the attention of one of my publishers. Um, the big Simon& Schuster is one of the big five publishers, reached out and saw that I was starting to talk a little bit more about my book. In fact, I think at this point I was going to self-publish because I had queried agents and hadn't really got anywhere with it. So I had commissioned an cover artist. I don't know if you guys remember like the first cover art, which looked really like medieval Game of Thronesy. And then I paid for the editor and I was like, cool, I'm gonna publish 2023 summer. And then about a month before, I got a DM from SNS saying we'd love to read what you've got. Sent it to them within a month. They were like, we want to offer you a two-book deal. And it was just like just mind blowing because obviously that's what I've always wanted since I was 13 years old. I was 23 turning 24 at the time, I think. So it was very like full circle moment. And then I kind of documenting my publishing journey over the months of me going to the printers and me going through my edits and like the character cover reveal and the character artwork that we had included in the side of every single copy of The Light That Blinds Us. So it was just really, really nice to kind of share that behind the scenes of the book because as a book talker, all I had done is seen the finished product. So it was really, really nice.
Yeah.
Um, and then yeah, now it's just me as I guess I'm an author now. So me as like as a
You
published
guess.
author, yes, kind of just like again showing like promotion of book one, writing of book two, all that sort of stuff as well. So it's been very rewarding, but very soul bearing, I think, as well.
Yeah. Amazing. Do you feel like do you feel like book talk in any way like influenced the shaping of your book or the plot of your book in any way?
That's a really good question. I think with The Light That Blinds Us, not as much because that book was one that I had drafted for many, many years for such a long time. So
Hmm.
because I had like that core story, like when I was rewriting it, it was during COVID when I was working in a psychiatric hospital. So just before I kind of came on Book Talk. And that's when I rewrote a lot of it. But again, I kind of stuck to that structure like that I had of the, mental quest and the Having Training Institute. So it didn't change it overtly. However, I think on like a subliminal level, it did change it. So maybe it changed like the characterization of certain characters or the quotes. So I never had like a touch your own die quote, but I saw from BookTok how that makes readers just go feral. So I was like, right, okay, cool. I never put that to name because I hadn't read many recently published like fantasy, romantic books. So at that point, I was like, how can I include that and make it unique, but also be like a nod to all that trope. So I was like, oh, I'll get
Yeah.
Alexis, the water elemental, to say, touch her and I'll drown you in your own blood. So I thought that's kind of on brand. And he tries to drown his therapist in the first line. Not a spoiler, it's line number one. So I think it helped me to market the book. I'd
Yeah,
say more than write the story.
Yeah,
yeah, that makes
100%.
Mm.
And what do you think the best and worst bits about being a writer is, especially like within the book talk community?
Mhm. I think the best thing about being a writer on BookTok is to have connections with the readers. I think that's something that a lot of people maybe didn't have as much in previous generations because the way that you could contact an author is either by email or mail or events. Whereas this is kind of made what is a very solitary activity for me, writing, feel very interactive. And I've kind of built a community of readers that are like diehard readers. And I never anticipated that because I didn't know the power of social media. So I think that's definitely the best part of that. I think the worst part of it is something I shared actually really recently on my TikTok, and that's the pressure that comes with being an author with an online presence. I think I've really struggled recently because of how exposed I am to everyone else's journeys and the successes that people primarily post. I I'm constantly comparing myself to that.
Yeah.
And I need to realize that I shouldn't compare my book one with someone else's book 20. And it's all relative. And I'm doing this for 13-year-old me and not because of anything else. So I feel like that is
Yeah.
something that I've personally really struggled with as like a as I guess a insecurity. But I'm trying to get better at that.
yeah. I
And
feel
it's all a
like
journey.
yeah, I feel like creative types in general really struggle with imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
But then obviously if you add in social media, it's like a whole extra level because it's not normal to have so many eyes on what you're doing, and it's also not normal to be able to see what everyone else is doing so in depthly. But I'm sure you will get there. I mean, your book one's
Yeah.
amazing, so you don't.
Thank you. I think that's something that I really struggled with. It's I mean, I loved it because I was able to advocate for myself because I was unagented as an author. So I was able to say, this is what I'm seeing other authors do of a similar kind of entrance point. And it kind of helped me leverage myself. But with that, obviously, came a lot of okay, just run the race at your own pace kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. I hope so.
Yeah, no worries. I mean, you've kind of told us a little bit about book one there, but just to go into it a bit further, for everyone
Mhm.
that doesn't know, it's a YA fantasy series.
Yeah,
Book one is The Light That Blinds Us. And
yeah.
I was wondering what inspired the story. You said, you had the idea for quite a long time. You drafted it even before sort of book talk. I was wondering what inspired the story and how it came to life in its first instance.
Okay, right. Love this question. So it was actually an English project at school. I was 13 at the time and they said write a one-page story that ends in a cliffhanger.
We
And
had
I think
I had to do that as well.
yeah, but I think me being being a middle child in a Greek family household, I was like, right, I now need to prove myself. So I kind of took that. I was like, how can I get academic validation? And I had for a very long time been thinking about the story of elemental powers because I wanted it to be a magic system that was, I think, accessible to younger readers because obviously I was a young person at the time as well. So I wanted a relatively easy to access elemental system that was also I think innately interesting, or at least it was for me. And I remember vividly having this scene of the main character jumping off of the edge of a waterfall to save the love interest that has been an unrequited love interest. And I think that kind of paved the way for right, okay, it's going to be fantasy, but there is going to be a subplot of romance, maybe not anti-romance, but there is going to be some kind of slow burn romance that's kind of building on. And I was inspired a lot by Cassandra Clare's writing, especially with like the Infernal Devices, which was like yearning. So I think that kind of coupled with a lot of Percy Jackson inspiration, and then as I was getting older and reading more books from TikTok recommendations, adjusting my comparative titles. So like Legendborn in terms of it's a contemporary fantasy set in our world, which obviously just fantastic. I've just started listening to the audiobook of Oathbound.
Oh,
And I'm fuming that no one put me on that sooner because it's so good. She's got such a
Give no
beautiful.
spoilers. I haven't even read the first one.
Right, okay, no, no
okay.
spoilers, but I really, really like that.
And
Um,
I'm currently 80% into that audio, so
okay,
I
okay, okay.
I know.
I want her to like narrate like my day today. Like
Yeah, it's so good. But
it's beautiful.
that was
So
really helpful to know. So you've talked about Percy Jackson and Cassie Clare, which is really funny because both me and Tor actually said that we got Percy Jackson vibes when we were reading it. But there's something
I
specific.
think I described it in my review last year. It was like Percy Jackson meets the Fantastic Four. It gave like Percy Jackson meets
that's
like superheroes. It was just like
yeah,
that perfect combination of,
yeah.
it was so
That's
good.
brilliant. No, that's so it's literally like I was obsessed with Marvel growing up. Me and my brothers always watched it. So like very much like kind of bridging the gap in the ages between Percy Jackson based in mythology, but with I guess like teenage humor.
Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely has like a really nostalgic 2000s feel to it in the best way. I feel like
Okay,
we don't get many series like that anymore. I don't know. It's just something about it feels really comforting and cozy.
good.
But there's a specific plot element that I personally found really, really interesting. And you actually mentioned it in your author's note at the beginning, and that is Alexis's experience with psychosis.
Yeah.
And I noticed that you said in the author's note it was based on your own sort of family history. And I was wondering why that was kind of important for you to put in as a theme and how you did go about researching that. I think you mentioned earlier that you worked in a psychiatric setting, so guessing that has something to do with it.
Yeah, I think for me is I was always like really intrigued by morally grey characters that had a dark side to them, like the Dark Percy Jackson, or like scenes in characters where you're not necessarily sure if you can trust the narrator. So for me, it was what can I do to make this narrator feel so fleshed out and make us want to root for him even if he is, of a different ethnic background or a different gender to what the person is that is reading it. And I feel like mental health has always been something really important to me because of this family history of psychosis, and it's something that was really not talked about for many, many years in the family household. And even now to this day, it's kind of like I guess like kind of shunned to talk about the people that may have experienced it. So I was kind of doing more research within being like a massive psychology nerd as it is anyway, and kind of learning a little bit more about it, like picking up anecdotes from like grandparents that I'd heard that experienced to, or speaking to them directly. And where my grandparents are Greek, it's difficult to like so there's that translation barrier as well. So um just trying to learn as much as I could. And then after graduating from my psychology degree, it was kind of during COVID, and I was like, right, what do I want to do? And I was really get like gung ho on doing the clinical psychology route, so going down the whole like doctorate. And I worked two jobs. I worked one as a part-time um, healthcare assistant in a psychiatric hospital that specialized in schizophrenia and personality disorders, and another working as a private clinical psychology assistant, learning different therapies like CBT, DBT, trauma-based therapy, all that sort of stuff. And I think the importance for me was to be informed. I think that was more important than anyone liking the plot or the romance or a character, was making sure that people were informed on something that is so heavily dramatized and kind of like romanticized sometimes in books, that mental illness is like something that can be overcome or won by meeting the right person or by having a good day. And I wanted that to be shown and informed on a condition that is so heavily misunderstood. With schizophrenia, people often just like inaccurately describe it as personality disorders. So I wanted to convey what it is to be psychotic and to have those experiences, but to be a person with psychosis as opposed to being a psychotic person. And it sounds very nuanced, but it's just the idea of who do you put first, the person or the diagnosis. And I wanted readers to feel like they were learning about a real life condition within a non fantasy fiction world, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely really interesting to have that element because it felt very different, particularly in like a YA setting. But I felt like almost immediately when you start the book, because of that psychosis element, you get a sense of how isolated Alexis has felt like through his
Yeah.
life. But
And I
that
feel like it's an element that instantly just dragged you into the book. It wasn't even just like you literally felt like dragged into this story where you're like, whoa, what on earth is going on here? It made it instantly so like devourable.
Oh, good. Oh, good. Yeah, I was thinking, like, how can I hook readers? And my girlfriend said, "Oh, do the Colin Hoover technique." And I was like, "What? What do you mean by that?" And she said, "Well, she said in very, and I've actually read Verity. It's the only book of hers that I was like, okay, I actually think it's quite good." And
Yes.
it's with the character like seeing someone's brain splatter against the pavement as like the opening sentence. And
Yeah.
at that point, I was like, yeah, I'm intrigued. So I thought, forget about these typical conventions of starting with the dream sequence or starting mid-conversation. I was like, let's start with him trying to kill his therapist. Um, because that happened many times with me. I was kind of like, stick to what I know.
Yeah, we're
So
laughing.
interesting.
That's funny.
Yeah, it was funny until yeah, it's very yeah. It's very cathartic to write about.
Yeah, I can imagine. But yeah, so obviously that kind of relates to Alexis's personality, but you also have these three other teenagers who also have very big distinct personalities. And so I was wondering how those characters came to you and how you sort of melded their very distinct personalities into this almost like found family that we see.
Love this question. So I don't know if I share this often on social media, but the characters were actually based on the zodiac signs and on the elemental associations of each zodiac. So of the 12 signs, you guys I know are Zodiac Academy lovers, so you guys know all about it. But so like the fire signs would be like your Aries, your Leo, your Sagittarius. So I was looking at those character traits of fire signs and thinking, how can I construct my fiery character around that? So with Blaze, of which book two is kind of like focusing a little bit more on, I was like, right, Blaze is going to be bold, beautiful, attention seeking, warm, comforting. But then I also wanted to subvert a lot of those characteristics to show like a nuance so that they feel a bit three-dimensional. So I was like, well, a flame is also vulnerable. And a flame needs air to burn, air being another character, Kaylee. So I was trying to like just I had really good archetypes, I think, to inspire me. But then with Kaylee's character, I remember doing a lot of work because I didn't want her to be the typical airhead character. So I worked a lot on the feeling of control and the lack of control, and that's where her character is grounded in. And I don't really mention it explicitly, but kind of in later books, in book three, which I'm actually writing right now, the characters have kind of like quirks that tie into different disorders and different mental disorders to kind of learn about. So there is like an OCD element to Kaylee's character, where there is that hyperfixation on control and anxiety as a result of losing that control. And with Demi's character being focused on faith and on what happens when a character falls from falls from faith. So yeah, it was kind of like picking these characters, thinking who are the inspirations with like mood boards and Pinterest. I was like, right, Christina Young from Grey's Anatomy is Kaylee. I was like, Damien's like that warm girl next door character, but she also cannot be walked over because a flower might be delicate, but don't forget that it's got thorns. So I was just trying to do a lot of like fleshing out the characters of what are their motivations, what's their background, and what's their cultural inspirations as well, because each of the characters come from different parts of the world. So Blaze being of Nigerian descent, Demi being of Greek and Egyptian descent, so that was quite important in their characterization and in their family history as well.
Yeah, I mean, that definitely came across like they were very diverse characters in every
Mhm.
sense of the word. And it's so funny that you say that specifically about Kaylee because she was the one I was like most drawn to because I love a complex female main character that's not necessarily like typical sunshiny sweet. And
Yeah,
it makes sense that you say about Christina Yang being on your Pinterest board because she's one of my favorite characters ever. So
yeah, yeah.
definitely
So
worked.
I thought I was like, she's just pure ambition,
Yeah.
unfiltered, borderline selfish, but she's also got a soft spot that she doesn't often show to many people. So I was like, yeah, I think we're all going to want to root for someone like that.
Yeah.
That's
And
us air signs. We are often misunderstood creatures.
Yeah, love it.
I'm a fire sign, so I'm with Blaze on this one.
Yeah, I'm also a fire sign. I'm Aries. What are you, Bronte?
I'm Leo.
Yeah, right, okay.
Yeah, Leo with a Taurus moon. So
Okay, okay, complex, complex.
So you briefly started to touch on book two without giving obviously too many spoilers for those who might be watching that haven't read The Light That Blinds Us. What can we expect from book two?
So, The Dark That Hides Us
Mm.
picks up immediately after The Light That Blinds Us, and it's very much a continuation of the story following the quest from book one. but this story is focusing on the battle on the summer solstice, and we see our characters face challenges that are just as integral with the external conflict as it is internal conflict as well. And I think we really get to see the repercussions of that quest and what it had on them and what they had to face and how they changed as a result of that. And I guess that kind of loss of childhood as a result of that as well. So the book to me feels much more adult in the sense of what they go through and the way in which they think about things. So not only are the themes more adult, but also the romance is kind of aged up. And I think that's what readers will hopefully be looking forward to because the books are YA. I love the fact that they're YA, but I know that a lot of readers also would like to have, or can imagine it as being a kind of like YA crossover. And I think that's where we get to with The Dark That Hides Us. And we get to see a greater exploration of some of the other characters that maybe we didn't see too much because it was solely focused on Alexis' POV. So I think there are 5 POV characters, but it's primarily Alexis, but we see blazes kind of throughout. We see other characters dotted throughout the battle. It is, I genuinely, I love this book so much because it's everything I wanted to read and watch when I was younger. There's declarations of love during battle sequences. There's cool uses of power. There's plot twists. Like I genuinely can't count the number of plot twists I put in there. To the point where I don't even know what the original thing was before I twisted it. So it was really cool. But also I wanted there to be moments of intimacy and of time for readers to really digest what had happened. So yes, there's a lot of action for like parts 2 and 3, but parts 1 and 4, there is moments where we can really remind ourselves of how much we love these characters and start to distrust the way in which they're interacting with other people because I guess we know them a little bit better. So yeah, I love book 1 with all my heart. It's got a really special place in my heart and in my history. But book 2, I think, is where I shine as an author and where we get to see the direction the series is going to take going forwards as well.
I love the fact that you are so comfortable with the romance aspect of writing a fantasy. And I don't want this to sound bad, but I feel like a lot of men are not like they just naturally shy away from writing
Mhm.
romance plots within a fantasy book. There's a lot of amazing fantasy authors out there, but you don't often see them writing closer into the kind of romantic-ish
Yeah.
genre. So yeah, I find that really refreshing from you as a male
Thank
author
you.
that you
Yeah.
enjoy that. Like you can tell that you love those parts of your books, which is so nice
Yeah,
to see.
I really, really do. And book 2, there's a lot more romance in it. And I guess it's kind of like twofold. The majority of books that I read were by women. So I was always consuming a lot of romancy, whether even before romancy was giving that title, I was reading a lot of books written by women that were touching upon these topics. And I realized that as someone who's kind of like growing up and in a relationship myself, how much that influences my life and how
Mhm.
important that is to me as a person. So I thought, well, surely it's going to be important to some of my characters as well, and also to the readers that are consuming it. And I think it's kind of like a combined thing of like, I know how much social media loves romancy, so therefore I'm more inclined to put it in. But also I've fallen in love with reading and writing it, so I'm more inclined to want to share it as well. But thank you
Yeah.
so much. Yeah, no, I mean the majority of authors I read are women, so I owe it to them if the romance is any good.
Were there any like challenges or surprises in writing book two? Like, how did you find, obviously, like you said, like book one was written over the course of a decade, whereas book two, obviously, you seem to be in a bit more of a crunch to get there after getting a
Yeah.
deal. So, like, what was that experience like for you versus book one?
So with book 2, originally book 1 was actually book 1 and 2 when I was younger, when I was rewriting them. It was like this massive 240,000 word book. And I was like, no one is gonna read that. No one's gonna publish that because I've got no name to me. So I was like, I need to get rid of this like Prairie of the Orange Trees like girth book. So I was like, let me just cut it down. So I had written 2 and 3 as well over the years, but I hadn't revisited them in such a long time that I felt like I was re-entering it completely fresh in that crunch time period. I think the pressure that came with that is the perception and the reception of that book. I knew that this is going to be what I guess book 1 is like it's your debut. Then there's an element of like forgiveness if there's mistakes that are there, if it's not, the 100% the best. But with book 2, is you're starting to establish an author career. So I had put a lot of pressure on myself to make sure that it did stand out and that it retained a lot of readers because that was when we were starting to get international deals for foreign territories. So I was like, I wanted to get, and I wanted to get another book deal. So I was like, I want this series to be longed out. So I was like, it's only going to be based upon the success of book one, but also the quality of book two. So I find it book one I wrote for myself and then I got a publishing deal. Book two I wrote with the publishing deal in mind. So I think the pressure was a lot more to make it perfect from draft one, which is probably why it took me quite a long time to get that draft to my publishers.
And you mentioned at the beginning, I don't even know if you can answer this, but I've been like dying to ask you. You mentioned at the beginning you got a 2 book deal. So
Mm.
are you fully like locked in for the end of the series with SNS, or can you not tell us that?
I sent an email asking if I can tell people that, or if I can share it at least on Friday when we do the launch. Take from that what you will. But I can't I don't think I can explicitly share. But for me, I think it would make sense for there to
Mhm.
be 4 elements, 4 characters, 4 books. I think that makes the most sense. So let's see if that happens. But yeah.
And while writing this, I'm going completely off script here. While writing, I'm just so curious. Typical
Hmm.
Gemini, I've just got 100 questions bubbling in my brain. While writing this, has it spurred on any ideas for future books and series?
Yes, it has. So once I kind of the quartet for me was always like my first big thing, getting these books done. Once I finished this, if we're allowed to go ahead with it, then I have really big dreams of doing a historical multi-POV enemies to lovers fantasy. There's a lot of buzzwords there. It's like
Yeah.
so I've got yeah. So and that's I
Getting my
would like
trope list out. Tick,
yeah,
tick,
I'm like, what tropes of book can I
tick.
like? And to be fair, again, before I even knew what enemies to lovers was, I remember thinking if I was to do a story about these characters, it's going to be that. But it's lovely now to have a name of such an established trope that is so widely loved by readers. Uh,
Adored.
and yeah, adored. Like yeah, people are infatuated by it. So I have got ideas about doing a prequel series in the same world, but being a separate standalone entrance point in the same way that the Infernal Devices was a separate read from the City of Bones, Mortal Instrument series.
Oh.
I've also got a really, really, really early idea of doing a not fantasy, just a a fiction romance story. Um, I can't even say what the comparative titles are because it's going to give it away. But no, it's going to be sad.
Oh
It's going
no.
to be
Oh God.
yeah.
I'm the
Think like
biggest crier, so
yeah. So but like a heart-wrenching story of self-love and of the power of mutual love kind of thing. Um, but I've got ideas for that. But let me let me do the series first and then I'll think about it.
Okay, so we've asked you about your books a little bit. I think it's time to have a little bit of bookish fun. We've got a
Mhm.
few different little ideas for you. So I've got a couple of bonus questions that I really want to know. And then Tor's going to take you through 2 truths and a lie. But
Hmm.
my first question for you is if Alexis had a BookTok account, what kind of content would he share?
Oh, that's such a good question. I think he would be a lurker. I think he's not like bold enough to start posting stupid videos like I do. I think he's gonna be there lurking in the background, liking comments, silently reposting videos of like romancy things. Whereas Blaze would be like the thirst traps. He'd be like the guy with the back muscles talking about like books and whatever. So I feel like yeah, Alexis would be more like a oh, I'm gonna add that to my TBR. Whereas Blaze would be more like trying to get girls with his muscles, I think. Yeah.
I can see that actually. That makes perfect sense. Okay, question number 2 is what is one trope that you never get sick of either reading or writing?
Fan family.
Yeah,
Oh
my
yeah.
favorite.
I think I'm so basic, but I think there's nothing quite as intrinsically endearing as reading a group of characters fall in love with each other on page in the platonic sense. And
Yeah.
I can't imagine writing a story where there isn't some sort. It doesn't matter if the group are like actually like each other or if they're bickering or if they're like Six of Crows when they kind of like reluctant allies. I love it. I
Yeah.
love it. I don't think I can beat it. And I love a slow burn as well. A slow burn fan family or a slow burn romantic love. I think that's also very like I'm more inclined to read that than I am to read a story of insta love, I think.
Yeah, those are my exact favorites as well. And also add in Grumpy Sunshine. That's like my holy
Yeah.
trinity of tropes.
Yeah.
Us two, we're just the same
Yeah.
person.
Yeah.
Elite trope choices.
They really, really are. So, as you will have seen in a previous episode, which went terribly wrong in our last episode, two truths and a lie will become a consistent theme in our podcast. But this time, you all need to pay attention because we will be doing a giveaway over on Instagram with some signed copies of Andy's books. So, Andy, please give us your two truths and a lie.
Okay, this is in any order. First one, I've not read a physical book in 6 months. Second one, I have nearly 100 unread books on my TBR shelf. And then third one, I used to hate the enemies to lovers trope.
I
Oh,
feel like I know which one's a lie.
they're also realistic.
Oh,
I was like, how can I make this really difficult? And I was like, yeah, yeah. Sorry about this, guys.
you haven't done a tour and given us two lies.
Yeah, in our last episode I did two lies and the truth.
That's
Typical,
brilliant.
typical airhead moment there.
No, I made sure because I was like, how does this work again? So yeah, I made sure that it's two truths and one lie. Yeah.
Okay, I reckon that it's the you haven't read a physical book in 6 months.
That's what I think as well. I swear I've seen you on your videos recently with a physical book in hand.
That could just be for show though. We're all content
Yeah,
creators
true.
here.
Can do I tell you guys
Yeah,
the
you tell
right?
us.
So the lie is that I have nearly 100 books unread on my TBR shelf. I actually don't have nearly 100. I've got over 200 books that I've not read on my TBR shelf. I haven't read a book, physical book, start to finish in 6 months. I've started three, they're all up there. And the books that I've done a lot of recommendations on, I've listened to the audiobook version of because
Wow.
I find it much more accessible. So there was a couple like really like half truths in there. So I was just being cheeky. And I think you guys both know I used to not like the enemies to lovers trope, and now I'm a bit of a slut for it. Sorry, I don't know if I can swear.
Yeah,
Uh,
You can.
sorry, I say
I
this well. I'm
mean,
like,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
we're total potty mouths here. We don't need to worry about that. What
Yeah.
are the three physical books that you have started?
I've got Owen Hamilton's These Notorious Virtues. I've
yes,
got Katie Weber's um Captain of Fates, which is out on Thursday, the same day that my book's
I've got the
out.
proof of that. I need to read it.
Yeah, and then what's the other one? I think the other one might be. I can't see it. I get up, but I'm wearing pajama bottoms and the
That's okay. We'll
other one is.
be off that one.
Yeah, but I'm also simultaneously reading. I've just finished Iron Flame audiobook and I'm about to start. Well, there's no audiobook, I don't think, for the last Fourth Wing book, the Onyx Storm, or it's not out
There
yet at
is
least.
there is the audiobook, but not the graphic audio.
Right, okay. So I need to start that. And then Oathbound, I'm also reading audiobook. And I want to read, is it The Will of the Many?
oh yes, yeah,
I've heard really good things about that, so I want to read that. But yeah, I think just because timing wise, audiobooks are just so much more accessible for me.
yeah.
Yeah,
I think
I
last
do
year,
loads of audio as well.
yeah, last year over half of my reads I think were audio.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
I mean, I'm times two speed. I'm on the way into work, and then I'm like on the way into the school because I'm a teacher, and then I get to like a graphic like smart scene, and I'm like, scoop.
What's
cute.
that?
Yeah, no, that's you don't want people hearing that.
Not
So
in my
before we finish up, remind us, tell the people what they want to know. When can they get their hands on book two? Where can they get it? I know I've seen a couple sprayed edge exclusives. Give us the lowdown.
The Dark That Hides Us comes out on Thursday, the 24th of April. So very, very soon, if not already.
Yeah.
You can get it from anywhere. Anywhere they've got it. The Works has got an exclusive Fire Spread Edge edition, which we've just announced, which you can only get online or in store, which is that,
Very
which is
nice.
So nice.
fire. And Wardstones also has an exclusive Spread Edge edition of the Red Spread Edge edition to match the blue spread edges
Match
of
the
book
blue.
one.
Yeah,
So that's where you can get it. You can get it literally anywhere online if you're international. You can get it from Waterstones or Blackwell's. But yeah, any sale counts. And it's online as well. Audiobook comes out on the same day. And the audiobook's brilliant. I went to the
I did the audio of the first book and I absolutely loved it. It was really
yeah,
good.
I went to the
oh,
studio at the guy and he's done book two and it's good because it kind of adds weight to the battle sequences and all the carnage that happens.
yeah. I might do book two on audio then as well. I might give it a go that way. I
Yeah,
love it.
yeah. See what you think.
Now that because you struggle with fantasy sometimes on audio, don't you? Whereas I feel like if you've read book one, you kind of know the world and stuff already, don't you? So it's a bit easier to like fall into it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
but both my brothers have done the audiobook of book one. And I think for me, if it's the first in a series, especially fantasy, I prefer to read it because I can see the spelling of the names and everything.
Hmm.
But yeah, yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
And where can everyone find you on social media? All the places, the handle.
TikTok, Instagram, literally anywhere else, it's at Andy Darcy Theo.
Perfect.
Amazing. There is one more question which I feel like is very, very, very important, which we haven't covered. Is your mum going to be at the launch event on Friday?
She is more important than anyone. She's the guest of honor, and I think she's gone out today to go and try and find something to wear red. So
We love her. She is so fucking iconic.
she's such an icon. She's just, I literally said to her, I was like, Mum, you do realize that you're kind of the star of the show. I said, you're gonna be there. I said, so you need to like act up, do your hair nice, get your nails done or whatever. So she's there like, so she's already bought 3 outfits and returned them. But she's trying to find the right shade of red slash black. She was like, Andrew, she calls me Andrew. Andrew, black is slimming. I said, yeah, but Mum, red is like fire. Like, come on now. She was like, I do compromise. I said, okay. So yeah, she'll be there.
Oh, love her. That's so amazing. So amazing. So thank you so much, Andy, for coming on and talking to us and letting us yap away with you. It's been amazing having you on. We're both so excited to read the book. For everyone listening, don't forget to head over to our Instagram and enter the giveaway for some signed copies of Andy's books. And don't forget to follow us in all the places. We'll have another episode up in 2 weeks' time.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.